What's good, my people? GizzyCredit here. Hope all is well with you all. Setting up, got some new lights that came in. Going to be doing a lot of things with the YouTube. So definitely, I appreciate all you guys logging on. Okay, I'm gonna make this public. Let me go live here on Facebook. Normally I have my music and everything, but I got new equipment. I got a lot of new things, researching a lot. I got some lights, got a new camera coming our way. The truth about debt settlement and debt consolidation. What they don't want you to know. GizzyCredit podcast. This is on Facebook that I'm doing this. Hopefully everyone hears me. My audio is from my Yeti microphone. Everyone hears me? Yes, they do. Let me go live. Okay. Thank you so much for logging on, being patient with me. Let's go back to here. As a matter of fact, let's go back here. And let's go to GizzyCredit theme song. Okay. You guys hear me well? Please let me know. You guys hear me well? I need to know. Okay, please let me know. This show is for you. Okay. Okay. Oh. GizzyCredit. Okay, so I got the YouTube. I gotta come out of here. What's good, my people? Say hello. Say hello by liking and sharing the video. Okay. Everybody see me? Is this only on me? What's going on here? Oh, there's 8 people of you. Sorry, I'm rusty. Oh, I got some people. Okay. Yo. What's good, Jazz? Okay. ¿Cómo estamos, mi gente? How you doing? Let me get my cafecito. Hold on. Do you guys hear me well? Oh, wow. That's good. You guys hear me well? Yo, Gizzy, the edge, the cutting edge. How you doing, the edge of cutting? You a barber? Listen, I know barbers are barbers right now. Okay, mi gente, that's el intro. Hope all is well with you guys. Let me get John on the phone. So you guys hear me well, right? Okay, let me make sure you guys hear me well. Because that's going to be the best thing if you guys hear me well. We got a lot of people who are constantly doing debt settlement, debt consolidation, and they come to us. We'll get to it right now. I promise you we will get to it. Just please let me know if you guys can hear me, because that's going to be the best thing for all of us if you guys hear us.
Hello.
John.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Over here. Just making sure that everyone hears John. Testing 1, 2, 3 for John. You guys hear John? John, say hello.
Hello.
Hello. John, the setup, I just got some new lights in. So I told you I was investing in some new equipment. The equipment has come in, and we're going to be having a lot of good time during this our podcast. So definitely looking forward to it. So everyone out there, go by GizzyCredit. And this is John, my partner. We've been partnering up for a long time now, since 2012. I've been doing credit repair since 2009. Partner up with John because John, he's a beast with credit. And the knowledge that he has, I just said, John, we got to put you on YouTube. And that's been the best thing because a lot of you are starting credit repair on a daily basis. You guys watch these videos. You guys watch my posts, results videos on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. And you guys know that this is not a game. We are here to help people, educate people, make them feel better about the process so that they can have trust in us that we're going to do our job and we're going to do it the right way and, help you guys achieve the financial goals that you want to achieve with your credit. So John right now is going to explain to you and talk about the difference between debt settlement and not the difference, but the truth about debt settlement and debt consolidation. Just today, we had a customer from Instagram who started credit repair, and the first thing she said was that I was in this debt settlement program and I didn't like it. So already, I know a lot of you are wanting to know, how can I get better credit? Because even in debt settlement or in debt consolidation program, you're not going to be able to get credit. But enough of that. I'm going to let John speak right now. If you have any questions, hello Michelina, hello Juan Sepulveda, and what's good everybody here? Sandy, Jason Norman, we all are here, and John is here. So John, how's your day? I know it's Monday. Mondays are crazy.
Yeah, Mondays are definitely crazy, but it's good. It's good. I mean, it's better to do this podcast on Mondays when it's crazy than any other day. So I'm glad we're doing it on Mondays, or we've gotten into the routine of doing it on Mondays.
Yeah, definitely the routine of doing them has gotten better for me but I'm still running around. We still having intake calls. You guys see me on social media, but we are running around. We're picking up phones. We're text messaging. We're emailing every day. But it's still, don't be shy. You could get a quote from us to start the credit repair process, like many of you who are on Facebook, on Instagram, and YouTube. But right now, let's talk about this debt settlement and debt consolidation, John.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to credit and debt related issues, there's different buckets and there's different lanes you can go down, right? There's the ones that get the most amount of marketing, right, are the debt consolidation companies. Meaning, when we say debt consolidation, we're not talking about a debt consolidation loan, just to be clear, because there are things that lenders offer which are called debt consolidation loans, where you're effectively just a personal loan. They call it a debt consolidation loan because they underwrite a little bit differently, because they're assuming the obvious, which is that you're consolidating all those debts into one, and they're going to underwrite it a little differently, so you're going to see it a little different. But it's effectively just a personal loan you're taking out, paying off all the credit cards and such. There's also the thing that we're talking about, though, which is debt consolidation companies, which do a lot of marketing to draw people in, and they're kind of the low-hanging fruit. And the idea that they advertise is just basically the idea behind telling people that they'll get them out from underneath the debt that they're in a reasonable payment. And they'll call up, and meaning the consumer, and the consumer will call and try and get a little legwork as far as understanding of what the service is, and it ends up they'll market it as, we'll settle your debt. We'll combine them onto one payment. You make a payment to us. We set up an escrow account, the debt consolidation companies, and then you make a payment to them, and they disperse those funds effectively to the creditors, whatever they're able to work out.
Yes.
The one thing that doesn't really get explained, and what ends up happening is what I've noticed historically from people that have gone there, is that it doesn't really explain to you that, in our experience from what we've seen, and this is almost always, is that there's not much of a settlement that comes into it. I mean, there's a settlement in that they effectively force you for the first couple months. So if you're somebody that goes to them, you're paid as agreed on all your accounts. Say you got 50 grand in credit card debt, and it's just completely digesting you right now, and you need to get out from underneath it, and you happen to see one of these ads and it looked good to you, and you contact them. They'll sign you up, and then after the fact or during the intake, they'll let you know that, you need to go bad on those accounts in order for them to do what they need to do. So they'll instruct you to not pay, and you'll not pay, and you'll start to see your credit just completely get torched month over month over month. And sometimes it can take 3, 4, 5, 6 months for them to get terms with these particular creditors. And typically they can. And they'll spread these terms out, sometimes 3, 4, 5 years. And it'll be drawn out. It'll be extremely drawn out. And, in a lot of cases, you end up dealing with, depending on how far down in the charge-off scenario you get, you may be dealing with the legal team of that particular lender or whatever the consolidation company is dealing with. So you're kind of bound to a certain degree by that, not just because of the legal team, but because of the repercussion that could occur if you don't stay on those terms, right?
Yes.
So what ends up happening is they make those payments, and they're not cheaper. I mean, I got to be honest, they're not that much cheaper. They're really not. So you'll make a payment to the consolidation company, and let's just say it's for 4 or 5 years, and it wraps you all up. The thing that we've come to realize over the years is that it ends up being about an 80 to 90%. I've seen situations where it's almost 98% that you end up paying back. Now, look, I'm not saying that people shouldn't pay the bills or they shouldn't pay back the money that they owe, whatever the case may be. I'm just saying if you're going to a company and your interpretation is that they're going to be setting up plans for you, there's some how going to get a haircut on the principal,
yes,
and work it out for you in the end of the day. Look, there's always exceptions to what I'm discussing, right? Whether it's auto dealers or whatever, there's always people that do things the right way, and they're really, they're really consumer centric like we are. But for every majority of the situations that we've experienced, we've seen over 10 years, it's always where the consumer doesn't realize till the end that they paid back 96, 97 cents on the dollar. Now, any individual walking around on the street with you don't even need a working knowledge of credit knows that you could have called up the collection company prior or the creditor prior and worked out something better than 98 cents on the dollar, and you wouldn't have paid it out over 4 or 5 years. You probably could have negotiated something smaller than that. The kicker is how that particular company gets paid. I mean, the consolidation company. So you need to follow the money and see why it gets drug out 4 or 5 or 6 years, etc.
yes.
The problem with it all is that throughout that 3 or 4 or 5 years, however long the payback is, your credit doesn't ever get. It just continues to get pummeled, right? And all that time, you can't open new credit. You don't have the possibility of going to open new credit because you're just, depending on how many cards you're consolidating in this thing, it may be, for some people, it ends up being their overall open credit that they have and just their entire credit history. And more importantly, it becomes a situation, so you're basically landlocked when you get in one of these programs. Now, look, do you reserve the right at that point to go to a collection and repair company and see if they can work on it while you're consolidating? Absolutely. You can certainly try. The problem you're going to run into is that you're going to be disputing the debt that you're still paying on, and you're sitting with potentially the legal team of that particular creditor or something like that, where this is getting a little bit of special handling, because typically speaking, collection companies and creditors don't like spreading out 4 years. They don't like going out 5 years. They typically manage to 2 years. They'll take what they can get and they'll move on. So you're in a bit of a special circumstance when you go out those 4 or 5 years, to where if you start disputing it, you can put yourself in a little bit of a position. But it's still an option. But it was an option. The point of us doing this whole scenario and talking about the difference between debt settlement and debt, negotiate or debt consolidation is because people just don't know. They go in thinking that they're going to negotiate it down. They don't think their credit's going to get towards because they're actually making payments every month. They don't know that those payments are being held in an escrow account, getting dispersed as the thing is moved out. So they don't realize until later on that their credit got towards. A lot of things that they learn later on, because either A, maybe they didn't know to ask the questions leading into it, or B, it wasn't properly explained to them. Either way, that's why we're trying to do it, so that people can make the determination. If they have all the facts, they can make the right decision for them. Now, on the other side of the coin, there's always debt settlement, where debt settlement is just basically the idea of a company coming in and just settling the debt for you, trying to get it as cheap as possible. And depending on the companies, I know there's different regulation relating to it. We'll normally just if a client's already an existing client of ours and needs assistance in that capacity, we'll normally just work it in. But I mean, if a stranger comes to us, there's a normal fee we associate with it. But a lot of the companies may work off a percentage, or they may work off of a certain flat fee based upon how long they're working to get it down. But normally, it's just a percentage of whatever the balance is. So if it's $5,000 that you owe, and you're with Capital One, you know, and normally the face value settlement amounts, just a very early sledding, if you're in like early or mid-stage charge-off, is like 40%, sometimes 50%. And normally you can get that pretty easily without really having to fight for it. It's to get underneath them that you need to kind of fight and persevere, and you really need to know the period of time that's the best to basically go at them. Now, I'm just going to go into this because it's not a primary focus of our business, and I think people should really know this.
Okay.
When it comes to credit cards, there's different stages of charge-off, right? There's early stage charge-off, there's mid-stage charge-off, there's late-stage charge-off. And literally they're used as those terms. So in essence, when you're like a day or two late, you'll go into early stage charge-off. When you're like a month or two behind, you'll go into mid-stage. And when you get beyond 2 months behind into 3 months behind, you're in late-stage charge-off. They're getting ready to roll you off, right? The time to go and speak to reach out to your particular creditors when they're in late-stage charge-off, it's a very delicate time at that point, because when you get to late stage charge-off, they're trying to line up buyers. They're doing risk mitigation at that point. So if depending on who the lender is, whether it's Capital One or whatever lender it happens to be, at that particular point when you're in late stage, they're packaging you up with a number of other people that are getting ready to charge off, and they're getting ready to package you up. So anything you can lob to them over the 1 to 2 cents that they're going to get on the dollar, which is typically what they sell these tranches for of defaulted debts, obviously becomes very attractive to them at that late stage charge-off period. You happen to get them a couple weeks before they've rolled it off, and you're willing to offer them 20, 25 cents on the dollar, and they're only going to get 2 to 3 cents on the dollar. Obviously, that's 22 cents. That's a 22% increase relative to what they would get if they actually rolled it off. So you have them in a bit of a position there where the leverage is kind of rolled back onto your lap, even though damage is being done, obviously, and there's nothing forcing them to do that. But what you'll notice is you're not going to get any type of real communication in the early stage charge-off. They're not going to come off of that number at all. When you get to mid-stage, you can start to negotiate. They're still not really going to come down a little bit as much as you really need or as much as you probably want. And then when you get to late stage is when the negotiation really starts. And like I said, that normally gets to about 3 months behind. It's consecutive months behind when you get into the 4th month. Now, depending on the lender, they basically start to charge off anywhere between 90 and 120 days of consistent non-payment. So you can balance that yourself and effectively how you're going to, triangle and settle it. I got to tell you, though, it's once you get to that point, the conversation is a lot more fluid than it is on the front to it. Most people are probably accustomed to calling in the early stages when they're, and the creditor just being completely dismissive of the idea, right, to settle it, or they'll settle for 60, 70 cents on the dollar, 80 cents on whatever, something that would be deemed as an insult when you're coming and trying to settle something with them. But
this is the original creditor, correct?
Say that? Well, look, I'm talking about original creditor because, we can get into the collection companies after, but the original creditor, you can button it up without it having to get resold, and you can really get it settled out. Now, when you get, obviously, to take it a step further, if that particular account gets sold to a collection company, then you know what that collection company's cost base is. So if you have a $5,000 debt, it gets sold for 1%, 2%, let's call it 2%, it gets sold for $100. You know what their cost base is, so you know the type of flexibility they have. Yes. So, I mean, not that they're going to bend over, because at that point, there's nothing forcing them to do that, the same way it's forcing the creditor. So it's always probably more intelligent if you have the liquidity or the resources to try and catch it before it goes. Just because you have them, there's very few times in lending where you can get a creditor in an uncomfortable position. You know what I mean? Yes. And that's one of the very few small windows where they are, because of the dynamic in how they package these debts and how they itemize them out as far as early, mid, late stage. And they do late stage, obviously, as a period of time to be able to get these all together and package them and see what they can try and salvage before they got to sell it off. So it's a very, very, very unique scenario, like I said. And if people have the ability to do it, they can follow it and actually time it appropriately, which is not that difficult to time because people know when they're 3 months behind. You can start reaching out and you'll see the level of communication when you get to the department is totally different than it would be on the front. and then the middle, etc. So, for us in the position we sit in, it does, on the repair side,
yeah,
um, neither one really helps our process, honestly. But for the sake of a client coming in and shelling out money, I think hands down, obviously people should empower themselves to learn how to do it themselves, right? I mean, first and foremost, if you're able to settle your own debts, if that's the plan, I mean, that's a gift that you can carry with you if you run into issues going forward.
yeah.
Leaning on a debt negotiation company or a debt consolidation company, I'm not sure I've ever met anybody that's gone back to them repeated times. Most of the stories I ever hear are people that are completely disgusted by the time they get into the last year because they realize how they got bamboozled. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And they don't ever go back. So, I mean, you got to figure the entire industry for the most part is probably a one-hit wonder. And they literally, all they get is new business that doesn't ever become residual. And then people learn about the other, the settlement side of it, the repair side of it. It becomes kind of like an evolution of understanding on how it works. That's why I said that early on, that the consolidation side of it, that with the companies, normally they get people on advertisements. You're sitting on your couch, you don't know anything better. This looks like a good idea, looks like it makes sense. People are paying to advertise, and people jump on it, right?
Yes.
The problem is, it's just probably one of the, in my opinion, it does a lot more damage than I think it does actually make progress. But it probably does get the creditors off people's backs. I just don't think that the people walking into it is probably as educated as should probably be the case relating to what they're doing, and I think people end up regretting it significantly after they get through the program. But I mean, whatever the case, there's a profound difference between the two, and I think that if somebody has the means to be able and the resources to be able to settle out, look, even if you get into late stage charge off and you don't have the full settlement amount, for instance, I keep using Capital One, but let's just say it's Capital One, and you get into late stage charge off, and let's say you owe $3,000. And you don't have, even 600, which is 20% of that to settle. I mean, you can work out a payment plan with them before it even gets to the collection company, and it doesn't need to be 100 cents on the dollar. I mean, you could probably work out a 40% payoff with terms over 2 years for them to where they're happy, and it would still keep it from going to a collection company. You would still be getting a 60% haircut, plus it would allow you the opportunity to pay it over time, which in that case on 3,000, that 40% is 1,200 over 24 months. It's like $60 a month.
But it'll still be negatively impacting their credit scores.
It stops the bleeding, right? In that case, it stops it from getting resold, right? And it subsequently stops it from spreading. So, I mean, it becomes a situation where you're nipping it in the bud at that point, and it prevents those, however many accounts that may or may not have been charged off or gone late or were an issue from reselling into another six, because that could very, very legitimately happen. Now, if that may not happen, but you're also going to see just constant torching of the credit up and down the line because it's always late. Like I looked at a report beginning of last week where somehow, some way they set up terms and it was just a little bit of a mess where it was showing 30-day late still after she went through a consolidation company up to present. And I don't know how that happens given the fact if you're structuring terms, even if it's on the mitigation side, it shouldn't continue to be reporting every month like that, right? Because it should report as a settlement with pay terms. So I don't know how some of that's what I'm saying. It's all a little bit different, but the majority of them kind of run it the same exact way, which is always seems as though it's at the expense of the consumer, Hello?
No, I'm listening.
Okay. So I mean, again, if the one thing that I think is that I want people to take away from the situation is that I just think that and this is what we do with all these podcasts is basically to just try and give them the proper amount of education relating to each particular product and allowing them to make a determination if it's the right fit for them. Now, a lot of the people
John, with the way the economy is going right now, there's going to be more people thinking about bankruptcy.
There's going to be a boatload of people for sure. I mean, they're preparing for that, right? I mean, this is why you see every day bank stocks get completely rocked, right? Because of the fact, I mean, while everything else is rallying, bank stocks are losing every day because of the fact that every single day they're factoring in more and more potential for default, and that default is related to, last week, that we had the the unemployment for the month before was 20,500,000. You're talking about almost 21 million, and that was excluding the people that were already unemployment leading into the year. So, and that's excluding anything in April. So, I'm sorry, in May. So, I mean, the more you start to factor that in, you basically apply a formula to it. And that's why you're seeing situations like that with the banks, and that's why you're also the expectation. We've been talking about this for a long time on these podcasts. It's just the expectation of the default is very real. The expectation of the asset reprice is very real. I mean, when you're running a 25-30% unemployment rate, which is, I mean, it's 20 million last month is you're talking about, that's about what? That's 10. We're already running 3 or 4, so that was another 7 or 8. So we're at I think effectively what they're anticipating is, when it's all said and done, to get north of 25. So, I mean, if you just do the math on that, I mean, the 2.5 to 3 out of every household is going to be on unemployment, trying to figure out a way to pay their bills. And, we live in an overly leveraged society. So any zig or zag causes a major problem. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of this, but it's going to be an unwind. I've been saying that from the beginning. It's going to be an unwind. I mean, we're just now reopening. Nobody knows what the exact how this is going to play out exactly to a T. But I think when you know that the unemployment rate is as high as it is, and we're a consumer-driven economy, I mean, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to put the two together. I mean, this isn't the industrial era when we were relying on steel and such to carry the economy, right? I mean, we are strictly consumer-driven, and that consumer is driven with credit.
Yes,
that's it.
I tell that to everyone who is like, there wasn't anything or any stimulus for credit scores. That's the one thing that never gets
because they don't care. I mean, they're worried about like more important things. See, look, when we're sitting at home, more important things like actually keeping this economy afloat, right? I mean, when I understand, like, consumers being at home and the micro picture meaning their own personal situation, their ability to be able to do this or that or the other thing. But when you're a politician, you're looking at macro issues. Like, how do you open up the biggest economy in the world again after being closed for 2.5 months effectively, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't just snap your fingers and the lights go on, right? I mean, there's a lot of businesses that are going to snap their fingers and those lights aren't going to go back on. And they don't know that. So their biggest concern right now is how is this going to turn back on? And you're right. There's going to, as a result, even stuff like that on the business side. There's going to be stuff like that. Stuff like that is going to ultimately eventually come to the surface, and they're not going to know truly exactly until things start opening up. And I know last week when a lot of the areas started opening up, they said that 75-80% of the people were still home, didn't leave the house. You were still seeing the same track. You were seeing 25%, which works. If anybody that follows our cast, I always say the herd represents about 75-80% of the people, right? And then you have 25% is independent thinkers and people that do the opposite of the herd and are typically right. Yeah. Right. So now I'm not saying staying at home is wrong. I'm just saying that it's a very herd mentality and it works within those particular ratios. Right. And it's something that I think they're really concerned about, getting people out of the house on. And if they don't get people out of the house in a consumer driven economy with the unemployment at 25 to 30%, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. Right. You don't need an MBA from Harvard to be able to do the math. If 8 out of 10 people aren't leaving the house, and of those 8 out of 10 people, potentially 2.5 to 3 of them are unemployed right now and are trying to save as much money as they can. Where is that economic injection coming from? Where is that consumer-driven economy going to be coming from? The other 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10? Yeah, you're effectively cutting. Extremely. Not to mention, by the way, something I want to talk about today is that the liquidity right now on mortgages is so sparse.
Well, yesterday someone called me from Chicago. She was looking to purchase the $99 credit card funding system. She told me she was a realtor. And then she also told me about that this would be great so that when she's trying to sell a home to some people, that they could get funding. And you know how you could do a cash advance from these credit cards? They could take out money and put it in the bank as reserves so that when the bank checks that they have these reserves, that they'll see that they have money. You know, she's trying to sell these houses.
But I mean, number one, I mean, look, it's a hustle that she's trying to formulate psychologically. She didn't think it all the way through, right? So, I mean, the problem with that is that individual is now you're gonna be capped on how much you can take out. It's gonna lean against their debt to income ratio, which is ultimately gonna prevent them from buying the house. But more importantly, the seasoning needs to typically be anywhere from 6 to 12 months, right? So, what are you gonna have them sit on the sidelines?
FHA? Because you know, there's something going around about FHA that the guidelines have changed.
Yeah, and not for the easier though. You understand? You understand that, right? Not for the easier, for the harder. So let me explain to you how they've changed. Okay, a client called me last week, or emailed me at 10 o'clock at night when I was sitting in bed going to sleep, and just because I can't not answer it, I
don't know how you answer it. I'll be sleeping.
She said, hey, I just heard that FHA raised their limits to 640. I said, no. That's the broker overlay. It's not. That's not because that's traditionally what happens, right? Like,
what do you talk about? What do you think? What are you saying? Like broker overlay? What are you trying to say?
So there's the closer you are, that's why you see the only thing that really turns paper now and does mortgages are direct lenders and actual lenders, right? Okay. Mortgage brokers, that's like a dinosaur. It's not even really like a thing anymore because direct lenders effectively they originate them, they fund them, and then they sell them. They sell them directly to Wall Street, right? Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae. That's who buy the mortgages, right? Yes. That's who buy these mortgages because effectively these direct lenders like Quicken and such, they don't keep these on their balance sheet. They service them for Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. Okay. So if you open a loan with Chase, you may open an FHA loan with Chase, and Chase may take your payment, but they don't own it. If you ever ask for a copy of that note, you'll see it ends up 95% of the time it ends up with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac.
Okay.
So when you go to a mortgage broker, what happened since 2008, 2009 is they added overlays in because the bank said, look, you guys screwed us so badly in 07, 08, 09 by taking advantage of people and effectively doing the same model that they do with the dealerships, right, where they build any yield spread, they'd eyeball somebody, see if they look like a moron in their eyes, and they take advantage of them with points and such, right? So they basically...
Well, people don't know. They're just trying to buy a house. They're so...
Exactly, and the idea was that you would trust the broker, right? You would trust the broker. You don't think he'd be sizing you up in his own opinion, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? So that's why they turned around after Frank came out and said, "Listen, number one, brokers, you're capped on what you can take, and as part of the selling of the mortgages, the further you get away from Wall Street, so the further you get outside of a direct lender, they add overlays, meaning more conditions." Right, so if you're close to Wall Street, they're like, "Yeah, we'll do 620. You bring a client with 620, we'll take a client from your 620 FHA." You get out to a broker, and they're like, "No, it's got to be 640." And rather than 3 months of reserves, we want 12 months of reserves. And rather than debt to income allowable up to 57%, we'll do you at 50%. Right? You see what I'm saying? They build in a conservative amount in order to hedge them because they still don't entirely trust mortgage brokers, right? Because they're an additional layer out that they don't entirely control. So when she texted me, I said, no, it's got to be overlays. So just because it piqued my interest, because it didn't sound totally crazy.
Okay.
I reached out to one of the close relationships I have, one of the lenders, direct lender that has locations in 20 states in this country. They got branches all over the place. And he said that what's happening now is that they're still taking on FHA 620. So the threshold hasn't changed. It's still 620.
Okay.
But there's no liquidity to buy those mortgages at 620, right? Meaning, when they originate that loan, they turn around and sell it, right? And what happens is that particular buyer, whether it be Fannie or Freddie comes in and buys it, and they work out a relationship for servicing, which is typically 75 to 80 basis points of the interest rate, right? Well, what happened was, ever since everybody stopped paying their mortgages, as a result of the deferment that was allowable, right, that the government offered.
Yes.
These servicers in the relationships they have set up with Fannie and Freddie, they still have to pay Fannie and Freddie whether anybody pays them or not. Do you understand?
Okay.
So let's just say, for argument's sake, let's just say Mr. Cooper. I think they're one of the biggest servicers in our entire country. So is Aqua. Okay, let's say they have 1 million loans, and of those 1 million loans, all of them are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So every month they pay Fannie and Freddie for their portion of the loan, right?
Correct, yes.
Well, what happens is now There's a significant amount of percentage of and the agreement they signed with Fannie and Freddie to service all those loans for them was that whether or not Ocwen collects or not, Fannie gets their money, right? Fannie and Freddie get their money. That's the contract that they signed. So it's on that particular servicer, whether it be Mr. Cooper or Ocwen, to make sure they get that money. They're motivated, right? It's not just like, oh, okay, you don't want to pay us, we'll still get, you know what I mean? Like, that's how you keep them motivated. Well, here's the problem. The problem is that they basically forced everybody. They didn't force everybody. They offered to everybody, people impacted, that they don't have to pay. The problem is, if you're a large servicer and 10 to 15% of your buyer base, maybe more in some cases, are paying, you still have to pay Fannie and Freddie every month, even though you don't have money coming in.
Wow.
So what's happening is Fannie and Freddie isn't getting their money. So as a result of that, or Fannie and Freddie's getting their money, but the servicers are literally asking. We talked about this in the previous one. They're asking for funding from the government now too in order to carry it, because they were forced to have to adhere to this. The problem is the purchase side of this, meaning when a direct lender originates a loan and turns around and sells it, there's no liquidity until on an FHA loan, no real liquidity up till around 680. This was as of last week. So maybe things are loosened up. I doubt it, but maybe they have, to where that's where a lot of the buyers are sitting, because the risk up there becomes a lot less, right? Meaning, like, they're able to pick and choose the borrower rather than, because there's a significant difference in credit score between 620 and 680. So when I go back to saying to you that stipulations are changing and they're tightening, they're tightening for the worse for the borrower, right?
Yes.
Now he still told me, he says, look, just keep sending everybody over 620. We can get the deal done. We'll get the deal done and we'll get it resold, because we're just not going to make as much money on it, and it's going to be a wash on the resale, but we'll get money on the spread and on the fees, which with them is almost nominal, but they do a lot of volume, right? So it all adds up, and plus they want to keep paper moving. But the broader point I'm trying to make, and this is what we talk about with clients on a daily basis, is just you got to be realistic walking into the environment we're walking into right now. Now, although those stipulations haven't changed about the 620 on FHA, et cetera, if you are somebody that's got a file that's got some hair on it, it may take a little longer because of situations like this, and I know there's a lot of lenders that are pushing away, because a direct lender is only as good as the source that they have to resell the mortgages on. If it's a smaller direct lender, like Quicken, probably still turning over loans left and right because they're huge, right?
Yes.
But if you get into a smaller direct lender who does, a percentage volume of what somebody like Quicken does, they're not going to have the same amount of buyers. They're not going to have the same relationship. So they're going to tell you things like, the cheapest we can get, or the lowest credit score is 640, because that's not true. There's been nothing released to suggest that. It's just related to where the liquidity is on where they can resell. So whoever their buyer is of their mortgages is like, we're not taking anything less than 640. You understand what I'm saying? It's not that it's actually the government's coming out and switching it. It's related to that particular direct lender and who their buyer is. Who their buyer or buyers is, and where they're willing to accept loans. And sometimes they don't want to take loans.
Was that lady from Maryland?
No. The one I'm talking about last week. No, she was from Texas, but it ends
wasn't it that situation where she said her friend, who's the mortgage guy, told her that she needs to be at 640. The customers. She looked like Cindy. She looked like Cyndi Lauper in her picture, and her she's like in the 80s.
No, but she was wrong. She got approved, and that was before. But she was wrong. But yeah, no, I know who you're talking about. But I'm not going to call her out. But but she was wrong too, though. But she, unfortunately, in this particular case, though, I mean, it ends up being a situation where they're not tightening for the better. And to tie back to what you were originally talking about, that situation wouldn't work even in a good market, though, right?
Okay.
Like that wouldn't because they go back 12 months and they see that there was just everything about that would be flawed, right? That would work in like 07, 08, right? When things were just much less regulated and much more kind of Wild West, and now things are different. You can't pull that stuff off and when people learn too late. I mean, there's just no way to functionally. I mean, there's ways, but they're very, very small to be able to functionally be able to open a high limit credit card, take cash off of it, purchase, and then, because number one, there's seasoning requirements on refinances now. Number two, you're limited in the amount. We've talked about this last week. You're limited in the amount that you can actually advance off of a card, taking into consideration the interest and the associated costs with it. Like, the only way it would potentially work is if you bought a house for like $100,000 and it was worth $300,000, and you knew that you had a home run waiting for you, you'd be able to refinance it even at 50% loan to value after 6 months. You would just have to tread water on that advance you made in order that period of time to just quick get back and put some long money on it. with some long amortization money on it that you could even it back out. But that's not what she's talking about. She's talking about just trying to flip
money
it
out. I told her like this, but aren't they gonna run the credit at the end when you're about to be on the closing table? Don't they rerun the credit?
No, but not if the credit report that they pulled the beginning was. No.
But if some of these are taking more than 60 days, they're gonna have to rerun the credit report.
If it goes beyond 90 days, typically, is when they do that. You know what I mean? That's normally when you'll have to rerun it again. Normally, the report will be good for 69 days, depending on the lender. But I mean, in any situation, it ends up. There's no way, because if they pay with a cash advance and they were closing in a month, there's no way you'd be able to do it, because they wouldn't be able to. There would be no seasoning on the money for 30 days. It doesn't. It's not. There's no way. It just doesn't.
So on
there's
top
not any
of
way.
showing that debt, the interest rate on 2 to 3 months on a cash advance like that's going to hurt the customer.
Of course, that's why I say it doesn't work. It's not sustainable. There's not any situation where you can buying property on credit other than what I just described, where the loan to value is just so low and it really doesn't take into consideration like you'd be able to get out at a 50 LTV in any situation. Somebody would be willing to lend to you to get you back out of that. So the only way that would, and it has to be quick, like 2-3 months, 10 years, 5-6 months, you have to be able to carry it.
And then let's say they don't close in 60 days, it goes into 90 days, and they rerun the credit. They're going to see that they took money out of this credit card and their DTI goes up.
There's not any situation where it makes sense. And we went into a lot of depth about that last week. And people always try and hustle, and that's fine. I mean, I respect people whose minds are running. It's just you're not running in the right direction that way. I mean, you're running in the wrong direction, and you're ultimately going to pass that along as a good idea, and it's an awful idea. For a multitude of reasons. And, we get asked that question. That's why we talked about it last week in the depth that we did, because we get it asked all the time. And I mean, if somebody has a true line of credit, that's a different conversation, where it's a longer amortization, it's booked separately, and obviously it's truly cash, right, that you can take off without penalty. Transferring money off credit cards that's not the purpose of it. That's not why they extend it. That's why they limit the amount that you can take off from the cases, and they tax you egregiously on the money that you take out as cash. Not to mention, you can't just open up a card Tuesday and Wednesday you empty it out in cash. Even if you had that available, they'd freeze that card. They'd freeze that card in a heartbeat. If you opened up a card Tuesday for $25,000 and then Wednesday you tried to take 25 G's in cash off of it, if for some reason they allowed it, meaning like that was the available cash advance on it, they'd shut the card down before you got that money, because it looks like it looks like a hit and run.
Yes.
Who would go in and do that kind of a situation? And then they'd be frozen. They put you through all kinds of protocols, effectively, and then they'd effectively shut the card down. You would never get the money, and you would never get the card back. So, I mean, there's a finesse you'd have to even do to it, but it wouldn't even work anyway, so it's irrelevant. It's just not a functional scenario on a credit card. There's no way. But we're getting kind of off topic, so I don't want to go too far off topic.
No. I was going to go back into the debt settlement, because a lot of people join these programs and they think that, after 2 years, 3 years that they're in this program, that their credit magically goes up, and, they'll be ready in 2-3 years to purchase a home, when in reality, they're going to need credit repair during that time.
Absolutely. I mean, it's without a doubt they're going to, in both of the situations, whether you're doing debt settlement or you're doing, I think the one misnomer I get a lot, which is interesting, is that people think if you pay collections or you pay off accounts, it removes them, right? Which I have to clarify a lot. And the reality is that if it's a negative account, it stays in the report for 7 years from the date of the first negative. If it's a positive account, it stays in your report for 10 years from when it's closed. Okay, so if you closed a positive account in January of 2007, where you didn't have any negative rates on it or anything, it's going to stand there till January of 2017, right? And negative account is subsequent with the 3 years. I'm sorry, the 7 years, like I said. But a lot of people think when you pay it, it comes off. And unfortunately, that only works if you negotiate with the creditor. And original creditors aren't allowed to do that. So the only creditor you could potentially do a pay for delete with is a collection company. And that's, even then, the probabilities of that are small. They're not common. It's not normal, and it's not offered widely. It's a baby, But it gets talked about like it's just every collection company's like, yeah, we'll remove it if you pay. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. That's the probability. And anybody that's ever tried it learns the hard way. They see it and they try and do it, and they're like, oh, yep, I guess it doesn't work. So And in most cases, when people do go through these debt settlements and they eventually settle it out, they think even when they're in collection, if they pay it, that should get them a score jump. Fortunately, that doesn't do that either, right? Like, let's say you have one open hospital collection and it dumps your score when it reports like 60 points, which is a real thing. I mean, maybe not 60, maybe like 30 or 40 on a real, if it's a clean report and everything else looks great. If you go to pay that the following day and they won't delete it, that's not going to jump your score back. You might get a couple points back. That's it.
Well, Teresa on YouTube, on Facebook, I met her through Facebook, and she's on Facebook and on YouTube right now, saying how she wants to remove. She's checking out other credit repair companies, and she's also looking into removing student loans. So she wanted me to log on today. She's actually a realtor, but she also said, I did not mind paying taxes on the debt that they wrote off, but why bother settling it when it doesn't going to do anything to your credit scores?
Well, that's why I'm kind of programmed to preface. I always go, I don't tell people not to pay their debts. If you ran a debt up, that's on you. That's your own situation. I'm not telling you not to do that.
At least she got peace of mind that it's paid off.
Well, look, if you pay it off, you effectively stop the bleeding too, right? Correct. So, I mean, I'm not condoning people not to pay the bills. I'm just trying to give people the right amount of information so that they can use all this information when they make their decision, right? Yeah. She's looking at it in a certain way where she had to pay. It sounds like she got 1099 and she had to pay taxes on it, right? Because nothing was paid back. So that means it went from the original creditor to a collection company who got nothing. Maybe a second one got nothing, and they sent it back because nobody was able to collect a nickel. And they subsequently 1099 themselves all the way back to the original creditor, and they 1099 her. I mean, you can go down that path, but sadly, every time it gets resold, a new collection company a new negative account reports. So you're just exacerbating the original issue, right? Yes. If somebody's fine with that and they don't care, so be it. I mean, to each his own. Again, we're not here. I mean, we tell the clients that we have that we start with, we advise them on what is in their best interest, all things considered, right? When we do these podcasts, we're just trying to give everybody the proper knowledge so they understand exactly how the game works, so that they can make their own decisions if they're not a client of ours, right? They know all the rules of the game, and it's their determination to make the best decision based upon those rules. Because I think the problem is that a lot of the rules of the games aren't really disclosed, right? It's kind of smoke and mirrors with a lot of this debt and credit-related stuff, and people want you to understand what goes on, because the less you know, the less you understand, the greater they look, right? In a lot of cases, and I think the opposite. I'm like, the more you understand, the more you can digest, the better decision you can make, the more you can actually differentiate between a clown and a real operation, right? Because I'm more about people being able to make the proper decision based on the proper variables that they should have been taught in grade school to begin with. And then this way, like you would hire a plumber, you would hire an accountant, you would hire anything else, you can arrive at the right decision based on whatever your true goals are, and not think it's always a one size fits all, right? Yeah. Which sometimes it can be, but it's just not always.
Well, that's the thing, that on top of waiting 3 years to finish up the program, now you got to wait till your credit is repaired, which could take another, at least, if you're planning on doing something with any credit repair company, you got to go to them 3 months to 4 months in advance to see where they could put you at. And that's what we tell our customers. People who come to us, give us at least 90 to 120 days. Maybe we'll do things faster, but during that time, you're gonna be in a better position than you are right now than when you started.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and as I say this every time, and I know I sound doom and gloom, but I think what people need to understand is the way credit looks today, even if it is altered from what it was 2 months ago before all this started, it's going to look a lot different in 2 more months, which is going to look a lot more different in 2 months from there, going into the beginning of next year. I've been saying this from the beginning. There's just going to be, there already is, and there's going to continue to be a significant de-risking that goes on everywhere. So, we're telling everybody, we get people a lot that email in and want us to move one account here, one account there. Like, no, we don't, that's not what we do. I mean, we have a service where we're positioning you. What's that?
Or to remove 2 or 3 inquiries.
No, but I ain't going to comment on that. But I'm talking 2 or 3 accounts when there was somebody that reached out the other day, just not to throw anybody under the bus, but it's not unique to this individual either. You might have had, I think he had 20 accounts. He wanted us to remove 4 of them. And I said, what would be the point of removing 4? I mean, sure, we'd like to take the money, but the fact of the matter is, we're not going to get you anywhere. I mean, the service that we offer is the purpose of the service is not only to be able for you to achieve the goals, but to be able to get you to those goals and then walk you through after those goals are achieved. You move 4 accounts, there's no saying what the score is going to look like after. Not to mention, in this kind of a market, what are you going to get? I mean, auto loans are becoming hard to come by in this market now, right?
Ooh,
the liquidity with auto loans. And if you go back, by the way, if you go back to one of our earlier podcasts, maybe I want to say it might have been in February before all this hit, and we had a long thing about auto loans, and I had said 2 areas that banks make a boatload of money are credit cards and auto loans, right?
Yes.
And as they grow their balance sheet, as the economy grows, they lend more there, right? Until something changes, right?
Yes.
Until something gives to force them. Either default rates go too high, or you see a contraction widely. And obviously now you're seeing that. You're seeing a good example of that because that's the risky side of their portfolio is the credit cards on the non-doc basis and the auto loans, which nobody ever documents auto loans. So now you're starting to see even auto loans get a little tougher, which you haven't seen. If you could fog a mirror, you could get an auto loan for the last 4 years, right? I mean, and I'm not saying you can't now. I'm just saying it's getting tighter on the prime side. Now, anybody that wants to pay 25% interest on an auto loan, I promise you there will always be a market for you out there. But I'm talking about people that want to borrow at the right rate under the right terms. It's starting to tighten up a little bit, and you wouldn't have ever seen that before. And we're not even we're just getting out of the starting blocks right now of restarting this economy, and they're already anticipating now. So I'm just saying that it should be the people that are coming in to get their credit done or that are assessing the future right now economically should assume that their credit needs to be spotless in order to go get credit going forward. I mean, assuming that credit doesn't contract too much, in any instance, it's going to need to be spotless credit. So coming in and trying to remove this account or that account, do all this funny stuff to try and fill in the gap, you're going to run into a problem. You are. It's inevitable. I mean, if you really do the numbers on the situation, it's inevitable that you're ultimately going to run into a problem if you don't get everything off the report, if that's the overall goal. And that's why I said that the guys that come to us and want us to just remove a couple here, a couple there, like, no, it's not. It's only going to help us in the situation. It's going to do nothing for the client. And then we're going to have a conversation later about him wanting us to work on he or she wanting us to work on the rest of them. And then we're going to have to charge you again. And then
it just creates a whole bunch of problems.
You know what it does ultimately? It disrupts the momentum that you have to.
Not only that, they want to dispute those accounts themselves, the other account.
Yeah, and it's the same guy that's been disputing them for a year, right? He's got nowhere, but they're sure that they can get them off because they're collection companies, and somebody told them the collections are so easy to get off, and they can send a Goodwill letter to a collection company.
Well, I just have a question.
Having absolutely no idea what a Goodwill letter is. You know what they use Goodwill letters for? Collection companies, toilet paper. That's what they use them for. They use them for toilet paper because those guys would laugh at those letters. If you've ever talked to a guy at a collection company, those guys are stone cold. They're not looking at a handwritten Goodwill letter. It's not even meant for that. But when I hear stuff like that from people, I just say to myself, "Wow, man, these credit boards just spread out so much nonsense." I mean, to think that there's people sending Goodwill letters to collection companies. I mean, it's crazy. The purpose of a Goodwill letter, like I said it a million times, I'll say it again. The purpose, that's why it says Goodwill, is you're basically pleading on the goodwill of the creditor. So if you're somebody that's been a client of theirs for a long period of time, you're saying, listen, I've had a Capital One credit card with you for 10 years, 15 years. I haven't ever missed a payment. We're on auto pay and I missed this one payment. Would you be willing to remove it? And a lot of times, if you have that kind of relationship, you will. It's not meant for collection companies because there is no relationship there, It's not meant for people that opened up a car loan 4 months ago and have been late 2 times. It doesn't work there. You've developed no relationship. You're not going to get goodwill because you've given no goodwill. Why would they be willing to extend goodwill to you? This is like, I can always tell when it hits the credit boards because we start getting asked it 100 times, Yes. And then it's I'll do a pay for delete. And I'm always like, all right, well, let me know how that goes. And then they'll come back.
I have someone the edge of cutting edge. He comes onto our podcast every once in a while, and he says, "Do collectors agree to remove the delinquency by negotiation upon receipt of full or negotiated lump sum payment?"
I don't understand the question. If I'm understanding you correctly, is he asking if do collection companies accept? Will they remove the negative if you pay them? Because I think I talked about this already, but I don't mind repeating it. Is that what it sounds like?
Do collection companies agree to remove the delinquent by negotiation upon receipt of full or negotiated lump sum payment?
Only if you work that into the agreement beforehand. But that's what a pay for delete is for, and they're not common. You know, again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier. I mean, the times when you can have a collection company that be willing and be more flexible. Now, I'm not saying they don't do them, because they do. There are some that do them. I mean, smaller ones are very much willing to do it because of the fact that they're just trying to collect what they can collect. But the big buyers, Portfolio, Midland, you know, ERC, there's tons of them.
But how do they have that power, Jay, to say, okay, it gets deleted?
Well, because they own the debt. They're the owner of the debt. They own the debt. So they can do whatever they want with it. The problem is, if you're an original creditor, you're compromising the credit system at that point, right? You're the originator of debt, and you're kind of manipulating on your behalf, and that obviously runs into a problem, right? When you're a collection company, it's you're an investor at that point. You know, so you're effectively doing anything you can to collect. But I'm saying it's not common, though. Normally, the only time you can really, really swing to get them to do a pay for delete is if that's either fell out of its statute, meaning it's beyond the collectible period within your state, or it's about to age off of the report entirely. When you get to that point, you have some more leverage. But other than that, it's not a home run under any circumstance. The probabilities are very, very small. Right. It's not common, and it's not normal. And everybody's like, "Hey, if you could take these three off, I'll send a Goodwill letter to this one. I'll pay to delete that one. I'll pay to delete that one." And I'll be like, "Well, I mean, everything sounds great, right? Why don't you do all that first and get back to me, and we'll see if it comes off." And it doesn't ever come off. Yeah, it doesn't ever. And they're like, "Oh, you were right. Okay, well, that's great. Well, we just lost 2 months while you did all this, and it didn't ever materialize." You know, the other thing I hear a lot is when people say, you know, the student loan companies, if they had a student loan, the student loan companies, they'll finally, after being in arrears on the student loans for a long period of time, they'll turn around and get an income-based or an income-sensitive program set up. And then what the student loan company really says is, when you do that, then you'll be paid as agreed. What the consumer hears is that all the lates will be removed, right? Because they hear pays as agreed. So they think all the lates prior to that get removed. So I hear that all the time. And I'm like, listen, they don't ever remove the lates before. Those lates stay there. All it does is bring you current. You're no longer late anymore going forward. So you still have to get the account worked on. You still have to get the account removed or the lates removed, whatever the case may be, and it still needs to be worked on. So in that instance, it's a matter of, you know, people hear what they want to hear. But you know, to answer the original guy's question, yeah, they can do a pay for delete. I mean, but every time, like if you just called up a collection company now and said, "Listen, I want to give I owe you $5,000, I'll give you $4,000. You know, here's the money and give me a receipt." No, it doesn't come off the report. It'll stay on there for 7 years.
Oof. From the last day that he made that payment.
No, it'll be from whenever that reported. So if it reported in January of 2007, it's going to stay there roughly till January of 2014 or shortly thereafter, depending on the bureau. So, I mean, it's not when you pay that the clock starts. It's when it reports when the clock starts. Or it should really be technically from when the original debt that is attached to started, but that's not typically how it's done. So it's normally from when it reports.
Here is what Andrew Johnson, the bus driver from Minnesota, I believe, he purchased our professional do-it-yourself credit repair system. But here's what he said. He said, "Man, I'm so glad for this topic because that's what happened to me. Almost 25 credit card accounts went into debt consolidation and just shot my credit to hell. I'm working on getting all those accounts removed now, but it's a headache. A credit expert told me I should just file bankruptcy because I never get those accounts off my credit in 1 year. Is there any truth to that?"
Is there any truth to be able to get 25 accounts? We do it. I mean, the easy answer, of course, there's no truth to that. I mean, that's a individual decision. I mean, we had an entire podcast on BKs. You know, I mean, and the need for them and the relevance of them. And if it's somebody that has 25 accounts on each bureau that needs to come off, and you're removing them, I mean, all the BK is going to do is discharge them. That doesn't make them remove them from the credit report. You still have to remove them from the credit report. Bankruptcy doesn't. And Andrew, if you haven't watched the BK one, you should watch it and listen to it if you followed us then. But you should definitely do that, because even if you included in BK, it doesn't. That just absolves you from the monetary responsibility, assuming it gets discharged. Any accounts that are included in BK, if they're success, even if it ends up getting dismissed, it'll still have a notation on it that says included in BK. If it gets discharged, then it'll stay on the reports. If you have 25 accounts and you go and file BK, it'll still say included in BK. 25 accounts, and you'll still have just as much difficulty getting financing. I mean, especially now more than ever, but you would have difficulty then. The one thing coming out of BK that you will get in a normal market is you'd have the luxury of being able to get really low limit, a handful of cards to start rebuilding credit, a couple $100, and you could build from there. I know there's people all over the place that I've heard a couple of stories. I don't get a lot, but I heard a story or two back like 4 or 5 months ago where somebody was like, yeah, I watched a YouTube video where some guy just filed for BK and he got 150 grand in financing a month later. I'm like, you can't make these stories up, but and I'm not judging anybody that's filing for BK. I just know, because we're constantly submitting people on a regular basis. I know. See, the one thing that we have, I think, as opposed to a lot of other companies that do this stuff, is we handle every aspect of this. We handle the lending side of this. We handle the student loan side of this, tax side, the cleaning side, the settlement side, all this stuff. So we understand it intimately. I mean, it's not like we're giving opinions. This is stuff that we do, so we're very familiar with it. So, like, to think that, somebody would be like, yeah, it's a great idea to go file for BK, that individual must have said that to you because he was under the impression that somehow, some way, that was going to absolve you of those debts, or somehow it's going to make your credit report better. I can't imagine why anybody else would say that, because you would still need to get it off the credit report.
Well, John, it's going to be a good business for bankruptcy around this time, especially with the economy that is going.
But it's going to be another. I mean, look, there's some people that are very, very clear on the idea of what bankruptcy does. There's a lot of people that are not. There's a lot of people that are not very clear about, and they go to the cheap bankruptcy attorney. I have a client that literally filed for BK. He just became my client a month ago. Right before he became my client, he had filed for BK because he was losing a property he was trying to stay at. Okay. Problem is, the attorney, and I guess this happens, I'm not familiar, but evidently the attorney charges was cheap. I mean, I think it was like $1,500 or $1,800, which is relatively cheap, right?
Relatively when it comes cheap, yeah.
Yeah.
For an attorney.
So, but he doesn't ever get to talk to the attorney because he's so cheap, right? So the guy basically like, look, I'll file the paperwork, I'll do all the legwork, but don't be asking too many questions because you're not going to get a response because you paid me $1,800, right? Correct. That's effectively what I'm being told, because he keeps calling me up and asking me to give him the answers to all these questions. I'm like, didn't you pay somebody for this? I mean, I don't mind giving you the answers, but the reality is that it should be coming from the person that's filing it and handling it for you. But to answer, without going too far into that, to answer Andrew's question, Andrew, I don't know what the objective would be. If you think that it would save you time, it's going to add time, and you're going to add another negative account, right? Plus, you're going to revalidate all the accounts when you go to file the BK, because when you send all the paperwork in to include them to get them discharged, they're going to reestablish everything on the early part of every one of those accounts. So that's going to be a problem. I mean, I don't see really any purpose of it unless you're getting harassed on a regular basis, and for some reason, somehow, some way, you're just crippling under the pressure of it, which I don't think that's the case in your situation. Not to mention, I don't even think since you bought our system, you've done one round yet. So, I mean, still very early.
Still very early.
Very, very early, especially somebody coming with 25 negative accounts on each bureau. So, I mean, I would not, anything you just said, I mean, actually, I'm interested just because I really need to kind of pick this apart. It's bothering me. What was the reasoning behind filing? What was it the idea that you were going to be absolved of all these debts and it wasn't going to hurt your credit anymore?
You asked that question, so let's see if he gets back to us.
In the meantime, I'm interested because I want to walk through this scenario. Okay. I'm very interested because he's not alone in that understanding, because I get a lot that people think when they file for BK and it's not.
This is a perfect situation. I mean, right now, a customer started, Lily, another customer who did debt consolidation, and she's like, not happy.
Yeah, that was today. Yeah. We had the intake today. Yeah, she said the same thing, and she was really unhappy. But that's not even what he's talking about. He said some credit expert told him that You should file BK.
He said a credit expert told me I should file bankruptcy because I will never get those accounts off my credit in 1 year.
But hold on. But let's just stop for a second. I don't even understand the angle of that. And I know it's not you, Andrew. I'm just curious. I don't understand the angle of the advice because what is the significance of 1 year? Not that I think it's going to take a year, but what's the significance of 1 year? And how does BK bail you out of that? You add another negative account to it, and now you just bubble all these accounts, and now all these negative accounts say included in bankruptcy. Now it doesn't take it off the report. So I really don't. And maybe the term experts getting thrown around. I don't know. I don't want to talk badly about anybody, but I don't know. Maybe there's a different angle. Maybe there's a.
Well, John, there are a lot of people in credit repair who are also, that do bankruptcies, and they charge $500 just to get the paperwork.
I know. No. I understand that. That's fine. And like I said,
he's like, am I going to work on 25 negative accounts on each bureau? Bro, just file for bankruptcy.
Yeah, but still, that's not. Look, let's just say it's the run of the mill hustler, right? Some guy that just whatever, right? Couldn't care less about the client, just does it fly by night, will be gone in 6 months. Even in that case, you want to be able to make money off of it. So how are you making money off of that? If you tell somebody to file for BK, and I don't understand the significance of a year, if you tell them to file for BK, how is that getting them any closer in a year? What are you going to make money on the $300 Capital One he gets after that? I don't get it. I don't know where the advice would be taking somebody. You understand what I'm saying?
I get you.
Like, I don't know where that would make any sense, and I don't know the significance of 1 year either. So that's why I'm trying to get clarity. Maybe there's more to the story. I don't know. But whatever the case, I think his original question was, does that make sense? And to me, that makes absolutely no sense.
He has an answer. Let me see if he's on YouTube. No, he's not on YouTube. Okay, so we have another customer of ours, Armando. And Armando started with us. I think we finished his first round yet, John?
No, it's only been like 2 weeks. We got some results back. We got him some removals in the first couple days.
Man, my TransUnion is almost at 700 in less than 3 weeks. You guys are great. I said, nice. That's what's up. Then he says, let the professionals do it. I've had no luck trying to dispute myself. Won't do it again. I will let John do it. He's good. And he said, Honda laughed at me when I sent them a Goodwill letter.
Yeah, see? But listen, here's the thing, though. He read somewhere. He didn't tell me this. I'm just assuming because this is everybody. He read somewhere on some place where there was a bunch of people collectively that were saying it's a great idea and it's going to work and this, that, and the other. He got it from somewhere, I assume. And so, he did what sounded like it made sense. And this is why we try to do these, because you want to just eliminate what may seem like it makes sense just broadly when you're like, you get a group of people together that work in healthcare, and if they're hiding behind an avatar on a computer and they're giving stock picks on a stock forum and they're passing it along as it's a great pick, everybody's going to get torched more than likely, right? Same idea with credit. You have these credit boards and these Facebook groups and stuff are people. They're just people that are giving their opinions, and they end up passing them along as though they're fact, and it's so dangerous, and it's just gasoline. It's just gasoline on an already lit, blazing fire, right, of miscommunication and misunderstanding, and it's unfortunate because it's just not necessary. It should just be, if they're going to do it, it should be a community of let's try and figure out how to really do this, not let's just perpetuate more misinformation that's only going to put you in a deeper hole and in a worse situation. I just don't understand it.
Well,
it drives me nuts.
Here's the thing. That's the case. Andrew, he didn't file for bankruptcy. He's repairing his credit. But then I have Myra, who was on Facebook, and she says, yeah, I'd rather pay $2,000 in credit repair versus $25,000. So she said, I filed bankruptcy because I couldn't afford $700 per month in credit card debt. So in that situation, Jay.
Well, in that situation, but again, to each his own, right? And like I said before, if you can understand the game, and that's the decision you arrive at after analyzing all your options, at least you analyze all your options. It's not just a run for the exits. You understand what I mean? Correct. There's a lot of situations where people just cripple under the calls. Correct. It's not even the amount. They just keep getting called, and they're just not people that handle pressure well or the unknown well, right? Correct. So they'll just go and run and file because of any bankruptcy attorney will take what I don't think they're going to talk you out of it when you get to their office, right? So, I mean, they're not going to talk you out of doing it. So you need to be able to have that decision. Evidently, 25,000 or whatever she said it was the amount that she needed to do. But I mean, if I was advising somebody, if somebody came to you that situation, because your credit's already towards, I'm more than likely, if there was any liquidity, I would save the $700 for 6 months, 4 to 6 months, and start working these accounts out, whichever one you can. Keep saving the $600 or $700 a month, and then settle them over the course of time for nickels on the dollar. I mean, that's effectively what you can do. It's two different ways of doing it, because you're paying I hear about the $2,000 in credit repair, right? And it's definitely logical that way. You can save at $700 a month, you save for 3 months, and you turn around and you do the repair. But obviously it's still lingering out there, so you can do it one of two ways, which is what we're trying to kind of explain, so people understand just the different angles and the different avenues they can utilize and how each one will be beneficial, or it may not even apply to them, may not even be necessary.
Correct. I have a dispute question here. The Cutting Edge asked, when mailing disputes, could we mail priority mail versus certified mail?
I don't know if where they accept certified mail, if they accept priority mail. I have no idea. I have no clue. Normally speaking, if it's like an organization.
To the bureaus,
No. I understood what you meant, but there's multiple addresses for the bureaus, right? I mean, there's ones where you send the disputes, then there's other ones. If you go on their sites, they have multiple addresses. It's just, you have to know which one to send it to. Now, I don't know where they accept packages, because priority mail is typically a package, and it gets sent along with, package-related items in a lot of cases. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, because I don't typically, certified mail takes 2 to 3 business days. Priority mail is 2 business days. So you're paying an extra $15 to beat it by 12 hours. I haven't heard the question, because I don't even think it's been sent to. Both of them come with a tracking number. You're talking about the difference between 12 hours. If you were rushing for 12 hours, I'm not sure it's going to, because even when it gets there, there's still like 48 to 72 hours where they got to pump it into the system. So there's still a delay. So I'm not sure that 12 hours are really saving you. But to answer the original question, I don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure.
Okay. So Jason Norman just said, good job on getting the bankruptcy removed in the first round.
That's for his file. Yeah, it was good.
From what bureau was that?
Equifax. But we haven't gotten the other 2 back yet. We only got 2 out of the 3 back, and one of them we got it off in the first round. So
good for
we'll wait for the third one.
Good for you, Jason. Glad we were here to help. So let me see. To date, I have been able to help getting. Oh, look, Teresa, who wants to do credit repair, she says, to date, I have been able to help my credit score up a bit by getting secure cards. Is that a good idea, or am I wasting my time?
You're wasting your time.
Wasting your time.
Yeah, because look,
we're gonna have a podcast on just secure card. Is it the best thing for you? Is it not? But if you could that could be a topic for like the next week or 2 weeks.
Yeah, I always just say to people from the door, I said, do you understand how secure card works? You're giving your money to the bank to lend back to you at interest they keep. Does that sound logical? The whole idea of banking in general is we put our deposits with the bank, and then the bank turns around and effectively lends them out. They keep the interest on it. They give some of that interest back to us through savings accounts and money markets, right? That's banking 101. That's the basic idea of how every bank works, right? Now, when you do a secure card, they keep all the interest. And they typically, if you're bad credit, they're lending you at like 15% on your money, and they're keeping it. So, just in theory, just fundamentally, it's terrible, right? But if you're somebody that you don't know any better and you have no positive accounts on your credit, it's an opportunity to establish credit. But I would love to know the statistic behind how long people have secure cards, because typically speaking, they're a gateway card. So you might get like 6-9 months of age on it before you graduate into like a Capital One card. If you're not actually cleaning your credit and you're just making payments, till you graduate into unsecured Capital One card or unsecured Credit One card, etc. Maybe a first Premier. So it doesn't really give you any age anyway, because you're not really into it for a long period of time. It's giving you a small, minute, very diluted amount of time on there. So it's not. I don't think I've ever really seen a situation where it does anything other than just add an account to the report. It's always for a limited period of time. The clients are almost always maxed out on it because they give them the amount of money, and then they go and tap into that amount of money through the card as quickly as they can to replenish the liquidity. So you're pressuring your ratios in that capacity, and it just doesn't do any good. So I haven't ever seen a situation where it works. Money can be much better spent in other ways, like AUs and stuff. Once the report is looking good in an effort to build it up, make you more credible, give you a longer standing period of age, obviously give you a bit of a high watermark on the unsecured side. So we don't ever tell people to get secured cards, just because I just think there's more efficient and effective ways of getting to the same goal.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, I mean, doing let me see if there's any more questions on Facebook. Okay, yeah. So Myra, she had to file BK because that's her situation. A lot of people don't want to file BK.
But that was all things considered, that was her decision at that particular point in time. Maybe she'd do it again. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe she didn't have enough information at the time, and maybe she was like, you know what, I don't feel like settling with them. I don't want to give them anything. I just want to get out from underneath it, and I'll start over. And maybe she's younger. I have no idea about the details of the thought process behind it. But, she seems like she arrived at the decision, based on the way you repeated what she said. She arrived at it, and she made it, and that's fine. I don't, when we talk to our clients, similar to Andrew, there's not any account you can't remove from your credit report. I don't care what other companies say. I mean, in all the years we've been doing this, we remove every type of possible account you could imagine, including CPNs that have attached to people's reports that don't have the same social security attached.
That could be a podcast on its own, especially when they merge.
Yeah, and we removed even them. So there's no account that can't be removed from the report. So I mean, there's I just don't see the need unless it's a strategic scenario. But everybody looks at the situation differently, to each his own. So I mean, everybody sees it in their own way. We just want to, like I said, I keep saying, we just want to get it to the point where everybody understands the different scenarios and what each one brings, so that they can make the right decisions for themselves, so that they know exactly.
But even during debt settlement, with debt settlement, definitely they're shot. Their credit is shot. They can't even access new credit.
No, but a lot of times, like I said before, a lot of times they don't realize that till after the fact. They don't even know that that's the case, because they think, because they're making payments. The ones that really just kind of trust in their process think when they're making payments.
Okay, a lot of people ask us, though, when they've been in that program for about 14 months into a 36-month program, if doing credit repair is going to be the best thing, because they think that, doing credit repair is going to be something where it's going to be more cost to them because they're still in the debt settlement program. I mean,
right.
They're two different things. Credit repair is removal of the negative item. Debt settlement is you're saving up with a settlement company so that you could settle this account.
But debt consolidation is a totally different thing from that, which we talked about earlier. But I said before, I think that in any instance, whether you're going through settlement or you're going through consolidation, you're ultimately going to need credit repair if you want to use your credit again. Banks don't look at it, and people get misconstrued. Banks don't look at the situation and say, all right, you know what, we lent this guy 5 G's. He didn't pay us for 12 months, and then he settled it, 8 months later. That doesn't get looked at positively. That gets looked at like you did what you were supposed to do, and then you didn't pay it all off. So if somebody thinks that when that's settled, that now gets looked at favorably, it doesn't. It gets looked at. That's why you don't get any points when you pay it after the fact. There's no perk to that. So it's either, when you go through settlement and you go through consolidation, you're still going to need a credit, whether it's us or another people. Somebody's going to have to assist you on the credit repair side. Otherwise, you're going to be closed off to the credit markets for a long period of time. And depending on when those age-off dates are for those caps, if they stagger, it's going to continue to impact you. And if you're in a contracting lending, environment like we're sitting in right now, and you're going to need a 750, and even on bad, subprime cards, their requirements are going to tighten up. It's going to be a tough situation. People are really going to need to pay attention to this. But you know what's going to happen? They're going to realize it, or they're going to start to take note after the fact. I mean, I know we have a lot of people that are coming to us now and trying to position themselves, which I encourage, and I'm ecstatic that people are looking at it from that perspective, because
Correct.
I think it's the proper way to look at it. But there's also people that are just kind of sitting back and thinking there's not going to be some kind of an adjustment, and there's the possibility they're kind of hoping for things to go back the way they were, and unfortunately, that's just not reality. Then, doesn't matter. I'm not saying we're going to the toilet. I'm just saying that there's a corrective environment going on right now, and as a result of everything's correcting. and correcting by, basically resetting asset prices across all avenues. And we don't even know where that's going to ultimately settle yet, because we haven't even opened the economy back up. We're just doing it now. So we won't really get a good idea how they reopened, and if the virus rehits, or if it doesn't, how it reopened, even if it didn't, the virus rehit or reflame back up. We're not going to know till like September, because September is going to report August. August is going to report July. So these economic numbers are staggered. They're in delay. So it's going to be till the end of the year that, at the very least, that we start to really feel the real compound effects of this. We're walking into this, we're crawling out of this, or we're,
I have another question from YouTube. Miss Divine Brown says, you have to pay your dues when building, rebuilding. An AU account isn't going as far as it used to. I find you need an AU and primary, example secured, self-lender, or my jeweler's card to be able to get in.
To be able to get, what was the last thing?
To be able to get in, like to be able to start getting credit.
I mean, the self-lender accounts, I mean, I don't agree with that. I mean, that as far as the AUs, listen, we use the AUs to give people age. It's not all to just get unsecured credit cards. She's probably looking at it from the perspective of strictly for unsecured credit cards. I mean, that's not the only reason we give people AUs. We give people AUs to give them depth to a file, especially somebody that has one or two accounts on it. They can't sidestep the depth of it. The only algos, and it's not all of them, by the way, but the only algos that may look through an AU are the unsecured credit card ones. Mortgage lenders don't. Auto lenders don't. School loan lenders don't. Personal loan lenders don't. It's only the credit cards, because all the scammers that went out there and they added 15 AUs to somebody's file and they went and raised $100,000, didn't pay it. So, I mean, in a situation like that, yes, you're absolutely right. It's diluted a little bit among the lenders that took the biggest ass kicking as a result of people scamming them by adding 15 AUs on the reports. But the grand scheme of credit, AUs work extravagantly. They still raise scores. The algorithms that the bureaus have aren't able to discern still between a primary and an authorized user account. It subsequently feathers out unsecured credit ratios, which a large majority of our society has people that are over levered on their credit cards. So what it does is that's a 35 to 40 point active swing on every bureau. So when you add that and feather that out, get that under 30%, that's a 20 to 30 point move on a score. Well, if you're trying to buy a house and you do that and you're short 15 points and everything else works, what did you just do? You just qualified yourself for a house. And there are no conditions on the mortgage side for AUs. Correct. Just like there is on the personal loan side and on the auto loan side. So I love hearing it all the time, though, about how AUs don't work. They don't work anymore. They don't work anymore. They work. They work every day. We watch it every single day. It works. Every single day they work. But just because we're not telling people to go out and get $250,000 on secured credit cards because Barclays doesn't recognize them anymore and certain Chase cards don't recognize them anymore because they got scammed so many times from people not paying, does not mean that PNC doesn't still recognize them. Doesn't mean that this lender and that lender and that lender and TD don't still recognize them. Some of them do. They don't all run on the same algos. They're all black box. So
she just finished saying, yes, for credit cards. That is my field. I sell AU trade lines. I help people get credit.
There you go. Well, then we were saying the same thing, but it still works. I mean, it still serves its purpose. It serves the same purpose that it served when I was a kid, when our parents want to add us.
If I don't have a car yet, and forget about buying a car, but how about when I go and get an insurance quote, I'm going to need better credit.
No. Listen. It works. Like I said before, it works in the same capacity it worked when I was. I'm 40 years old. When I was a kid, when their parents wanted to add, AUs and stuff, that's exactly what happened then. They would add you as an AU to help you build credit. It's exactly what it's for now. It helps. It's a piggyback on credit. Now it still works for some credit card lenders. I 100% guarantee that. Some of them it doesn't, because some of them are algorithms that fanned it out for the obvious reasons, like I explained earlier. So a large majority of them that still utilize it, they haven't fanned it out. A lot of credit unions haven't fanned them out. But credit unions have adjusted their scam side of things because they've basically utilized different ways to try and offset for people that come in and the default risk. So each one of them, that's the bank's job, to be honest. If you're lending unsecured money, a car is collateralized. A mortgage is collateralized. If you're lending unsecured money on a credit card, you're constantly trying to figure out ways to get a step ahead of scammers. Now, I'm not saying that everybody that applies for a credit card is a scammer, and that everybody that's running a credit card business is a scammer. By no stretch of the imagination would I say that, because that's not true. I'm saying for that small percentage of people who that's all they're trying to do, and they're stealing ideas from people that do it reputably with the idea of having no intention of ever paying it back, this is what the bank do. right? I mean, they have that. That's how they make money. They keep the default down and they maximize the interest. I mean, that's how a bank makes money. It's banking 101.
Correct. So yeah, so I mean, debt settlement, debt consolidation, just get ready to not use your credit for during that time frame that they give you, whether you're in a 24-month program or a 36-month program. How far off have you seen these programs go, Jay?
I've seen 4 years.
4 years.
I've seen 48. I've seen 48 months. I got into it the other day with one of my clients. He's an old client of mine from Greenwich. His kids have Sally Mae student loans, and his one son's out of school, and they started. Evidently, there's loans now that are private, where they can make you start. You can pay while you're in school, and that's effectively what they were doing. And he was like, "Look, we can't. This kid can't afford it, but he has a job, and they're starting to add up on the lates on him." He said, I contacted this company, which I'm not going to say. He said, yeah, and he starts going through the sales spiel. Well, the problem with the sales spiel that she was giving him was that it was the same sales spiel that you would give to somebody if you're trying to settle an unsecured debt, right? And she was trying to act as though a Sally Mae school loan was the same as an unsecured credit card, which obviously they're not anywhere even close to the same. And so, I mean, this is the problem that I get sometimes when I get on the phone, and now I understand why people get misled, because they're legitimately misled, and I don't know if it's intentional, right?
Correct.
I don't know if the person behind the sales side of it is intentionally doing it, or if maybe they don't know because they're not properly informed. I don't know, but whatever the case may be, I'm like, I said, look, just tell me if you've been doing this for as long as you say you've been doing this, just tell me a name of one collection company that buys Sally Mae debt. Because she was like, they all get. She gave the exact same spiel on how real debts, unsecured debts, get resold, right? They get packaged up. People go in default, they package them up, they sell them for cents on the dollar. I said, okay, first of all, just do me a favor. I said, explain to me who would want to buy a student loan debt first and foremost, because they're effectively useless to anybody, right? I mean, you can't. I mean, they're useless paper, right? Nobody's going to pay you back for them. The only one that can enforce them is because they're the ones that originated in that situation. In this case, it was Sally Mae. So they're the ones where they're going to have the ability to enforce it legitimately. So who would buy that? She goes, she kind of scoffed at me. I said, tell me a collection company. Just give me one, because I'd be happy to name you a slew of just unsecured credit, collection companies that buy unsecured debts. Just tell me one.
Correct.
And she's like, I don't have to explain any of that to you. And I'm like, well, then I don't understand how you want me to give my blessing to a client of mine to start with you. He was an old client. He still comes back for information. So I said, if you can't even explain your process from A to Z to me, Like, kid, I'm not asking you to give me your secret sauce, because I already know what you do and how you do it. But I haven't ever seen anybody buy a student loan, and I haven't ever seen anybody go through debt settlement or debt negotiation. Well, not settlement. You can settle a student loan, but a debt consolidation, similar to how they do with these loan drawn out consolidation. And, I got off the phone, and I'm like, I wasn't any wiser when I got off the phone, which led me to believe that they're just, sometimes I think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that a lot of it's just sales, and that's why we, not to keep saying it, this is why we come back to this, so this way somebody can pick them apart themselves, only me to do it, and they can ask them the right questions and the real questions and the intelligent questions and the ones that they should be able to answer in order to be able, if they're really doing their job. Like, I couldn't imagine somebody calling me up and saying, well, look, explain to me what you do, and then me not being able to explain it to them in terms that they can understand, and then as much depth as they want to have the conversation without me telling exactly how I remove the accounts. You understand what I mean? Like, if you've ever noticed, when clients reach out to us, I'll give them the general idea how we remove the accounts and enough specificity so they can wrap their brain around it, but I'm not giving them the proprietary system, right?
Correct.
I couldn't imagine reaching out to a company and them not being able to give me everything to the degree that I would provide, and that's what I think is devoid in the situation, because I think it's more of a production line of knowledge, right? Like, there's a front end that knows a certain amount, then it gets pushed off to another person, and so nobody ever knows in those companies what exactly the left arm's doing versus the right arm, which is why I think there's a lot of clients on the back end. I'm talking about the consolidation side now, and some of these settlement companies, is that by the time the client gets out of that, they weren't properly informed about how the whole process works from A to Z, because I don't think the person that was selling them understood it.
John, everyone just wants a one-time payment, right?
I think everybody just wants to figure out a way.
Everybody who's in this debt consolidation program, they get into you're only gonna have one-time payment. You're not going to be paying, Capital One on the 5th, and you're not going to be paying Discover on the 12th, and you're not going to be paying Bank of America on the 17th, and you're not going to be paying Fingerhut or whatever, other credit card, Chase, on the 25th, and on the 31st, you got another credit card that you need to pay off. People just get crazy about that.
I mean, look, I fully understand the idea behind the juggling, right?
Correct.
I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy to juggle, especially when people start getting inundated, right? And they start getting in over their heads, right? When the amount starts, they somehow figured out a way to they make $55,000 a year, and somehow they figured out a way to run up $30,000-$40,000 in debt. That's a big number, right? And if you're making $50,000 a year before taxes, in their mind, they come to the conclusion that it's going to be very difficult for them to pay that off. So I completely understand the psychological response that a lot of them have. I'm not judging anybody. I wouldn't be doing this for a living if I thought it'd be right.
Each one of those credit cards, especially these retail cards, imagine that with a high interest, okay? And they're paying this interest the 5th. They're paying another interest the 12th, the 16th, the 22nd, the 28th. They're not going anywhere. So is that sexy now, doing a debt consolidation?
Is it sexy when you're doing it just to get a one payment?
Correct.
I mean, you can still get one payment though. You understand what I mean? Like, you can still bring it all the way back around. I mean, to the rest of the process. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm not following.
So if you go through the credit repair process, that doesn't, when we remove it from the credit report, like, that doesn't mean that the accounts get closed. Sometimes they do if they're unsecured, but you could always consolidate it into one payment later and not even have to close the accounts. They'd just be off the report. I mean, there's a lot of tactical ways to do it. I mean, let's just say it was $15,000,
okay,
and we remove all the negative account and your unsecured credit cards from your credit report. Although we don't like removing positive accounts, but I'm just giving you an example. Say you had $15,000 in unsecured credit cards, and you turn around and you remove those 3 cards, and they stay open, they don't get closed. You could easily turn around and potentially open up and reprice it to open up a new card for 15, and then roll that balance over at 0% balance transfer, still have the liquidity in the other cards, and just have a pressure ratio at that point. And you could consolidate and move it over and still have the same situation and pay 0 interest for 18 months. You make the same amount of payments on that for 18 months. That 15 has now come down to 9.
So that's the right way of doing it.
It's cheaper than if you went to a consolidation company. I'm telling you. Oh, are you asking me if I think it's the right way to do it?
No, I mean, but now thinking about it, the way that you're saying it, that's the right way of doing it.
I think this stuff can be like a puzzle sometimes, right?
Correct.
You just need to know where to put the piece. It's specific to each person. Sometimes you have to shuffle things around, but there's options, but it starts with cleaning the report.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't start with, sadly, unfortunately, and I'm not telling people not to do. I'm just saying, unfortunately, if you go in the one way, sometimes it can complicate things in the other ways, and if it's not approached properly the right way the first time, or if you were misled and you did it a certain way the first time, not realizing that it was going to help you, then it becomes a situation that you end up literally trying to reverse engineer over the course of time. And the people that are listening that experience that know exactly what I'm talking about, because we're constantly reverse engineering things that people did in an effort to get them back to a point where they can obviously A, get their report clean, and B, get back to financing because they've tried every other way, right? So, I mean, again, the purpose of these videos or the podcasts are just to basically inform people and again, give them the right information that they can make determination on. And if they have enough of the right information, hopefully it'll drown out a lot of the nonsense and the minutia that gets kind of perpetrated out there that can sometimes confuse, not sometimes, a lot of cases confuse people, misinform people, and kind of lead them astray, right? And lead them down the wrong track. I just think that, I just think it's just so dangerous. I mean, I think about it every day, just about how like the people that are giving advice on these credit boards are they're not the sole reason, because I think the sole reason we don't, I think it's very obvious why we as a society don't have education relating to credit or finances, right? Because it makes it easy it makes us as a society easy targets, right? I mean, the more knowledge you give, the more intelligent you'll be about responding to it, but I just think that, it's like I mean, when you have people that are just making it worse and not even realizing it and just passing it off as fact, I couldn't tell you the amount of early on in the early sledding, right? Going back before people even believed credit repair was a thing, back in like 2011, right? When it was like the only way you get credit is if you pay your bills on time, right?
Correct.
I couldn't tell you the amount of people that would reach out and then it would just turn into a back and forth because they were convinced. I don't know why they reached out in the first place, but it would turn into a back and forth because they were convinced that they were right, that you couldn't clean credit. That credit cleaning wasn't a reality, that it wasn't something that was real. It was everybody was a scammer and it was mythology, right? And then as time going on, and we've been doing it forever and ever, you just let the results speak for themselves, right?
Yes.
And the knowledge pertaining to it. It's just ironic to me that now, instead of those same guys that back then were saying credit repair isn't real, it can't happen, it's all a scam, blah 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 blah, are the same guys now that are out pushing the wrong information, right?
Well, that's
so
true.
you go from being dumb to now you're just dumber, right?
Correct.
And now you're trying to make other people dumber, which is what drives me nuts, because it makes people like myself, it makes our job so much harder because you have to literally reverse engineer all that bad information.
Correct.
And you have to bring somebody back. I mean, I love doing it now because I'll just be like, we're talking, like, because, look, I get even emails, I get fairly long, like, clients will ask questions and I'll give them long, lengthy answers. And I'll be able to tell when they ask questions from a credit board, I'll be like, where'd you get that from, a credit board? And they'll laugh. They're like, yeah. But I'll be able to tell with the question just because of the base of the question,
Yes.
And you can spot it from a mile away because it's nonsensical. But as the client, I understand wanting to run it by me and just rule it out, right?
Yes.
And rule it out as ridiculousness. And they ultimately do, which is what I prefer. It's just the problem is it's like I'd love for it to just stop. Meaning like the nonsense. It's not helping people and it's only making people worse, like it's only putting them in a worse situation. These dispute letters that I see that they perpetrate out online, man, they're awful. They're awful. And it just makes things worse. So hopefully, we'll get through to enough people with some of these casts and we'll have we'll be continuing to educate and find other ways to educate people and give them the right way to understand how this stuff works. Because I promise it's not as confusing as people want to make it seem.
Correct.
It's really not. I think the confusing part that people run into is that they're stuck with trying to figure out who they can believe. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's where the problem comes into play. There's just so many voices out there that they don't know who to believe. And, the thing that I love about us is that you got 10 years of results.
Yes.
Right? Not 1 year results, not 2 year results, which is a significant amount. You're talking 10 years, thousands of videos.
Correct.
Right? Now we've been doing these podcasts for what? 4 months, 5 months, just trying to give free information to people so they can understand, just so that they can get an additional layer of comfort, an additional leg of understanding, an additional leg of what's real knowledge, right, as it relates to this stuff, so they can utilize it themselves and maybe educate other people with it too.
Yes.
So this crap doesn't continue to circulate,
Yes. Well, we've been on already an hour, 37 minutes. Normally these podcasts have gone over an hour. I mean, there's no time here, but we usually stay on because we have questions. So we haven't had any questions in the last 3 minutes. So, John, I think that's it for this podcast.
All right. So, like I said, like we always end it with, if anybody that listens to this, if you know anybody that this can help as well, please forward it over to them. Correct. We don't push our service in these. I mean, we're not out here every 30 seconds trying to give a plug for what we do.
Bang you. We're not doing
what's that?
We're not banging people over the head.
No, not at all. I mean, we rarely even reference it. If we're referencing it, it's only in reference to the story we're talking about. And it's for a reason. I mean, it's for a reason. We're doing it because we're trying to educate. So if you find our stuff education, whether it's this one, last one, all of them that we provide, which we try to be as educational as possible, please send them over to people. I mean, it's not smoke when we talk about the fact that we're really trying to kind of eliminate a lot of the misinformation that exists out there. It's complete legitimacy because honestly, it makes our job easier. The more astute and educated the consumer is, because then it allows the process to go a lot smoother, and it allows them to set the goals higher. The more knowledgeable you are, the more confident you are in what you're doing, the broader we can set the goals, the bigger we can we can try and achieve for you. So definitely, if any of this applies to anybody that that might need help, please send them these podcasts, because we try and do them for that reason.
Yep, you got it. Okay, John, thank you so much. If anything, guys, see you next Monday. But everybody clap for John. Thank you, John. Today was another great podcast. John, we got to start talking about differences between secure credit card and a credit card or a charge card. We got a bunch of more podcasts to talk about to educate you guys, so you guys can be better prepared for whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish with your credit. Okay, John, thank you so much. I'll see you later. Take care. So yeah, my people, John there, he's the man. But no, listen, long time already doing these podcasts. Thank you so much for people who logging on. Hey, Gizzy, how do you get your credit back on track after being 90 days late on a car payment? 90 days late, that's 3 months of late payments. You could actually get those removed from the credit report. But if you got a lot more, I think it's going to be the best thing to remove that whole account from the credit file, Jamie. But I posted results on removing leased and regular late payments on a car note, which is financed on a used car or leased on a new car. They can still be removed, and they could show up as stellar payment history. But as you know, it's a process to remove them. But they can definitely be removed. Even if you get the whole account removed, it'll still increase your credit scores so that you could go and do what you want to do. But nothing else here on Facebook and on YouTube. Again, my people, excuse the whole setup. People starting the process. We're getting new equipment, and we're gonna be having a nice little show for you guys in order for you guys to enjoy it and eventually share it. Thank you so much for sharing the stuff. Yo, Gizzy, 3 credit cards, trade lines are okay for a home loan. You can have 2 or 3, just have the file, make it a little bit thicker. If you are paying on something right now, a credit card, all you need to get a mortgage is about 2 or 3 accounts. They could be 2 accounts that are $300, more than a year old, and at least 1 account that's like 2 years older. That's at least $1,000 or more. But most definitely, you could definitely build up your credit. Remember, your credit just gets you in the door. What gets you approvals is your income minus your expenses. And that goes with anything, with your credit card, with a vehicle, with a mortgage, all that stuff. All right, we're gonna actually, I think, work in the number. Oh, we did the work in the numbers for real estate investors last podcast, which John went into that because he's also a real estate investor. But yeah, my people, good to see you guys. Over here, got Miss Divine Brown, who says she likes my GizzyCredit song. So let's end it up with hashtag GizzyCredit. Okay. GizzyCredit. Anything you want, then you can get it. Don't be scammed, cause then you'll regret it. I'm gonna see you later. GizzyCredit. Anything you want, then you can get it. Don't be scammed, cause then you'll regret it. You no longer gotta look pathetic. Where's my daughter? Look pathetic. Gizzy. Woo! Bella Rain. Don't get scared. Oh, Bella. Oh, damn. Oh. Here's your part, Bella. Here's your part. Oh. Don't get scammed. What you need is just a change of plan. I'm gonna see y'all later. Bro, that's all. Charles, bendiciones. See y'all later. You too. Bendiciones. See y'all later. Thank you so much.